Live from the United National Congress social space, this is the virtual campaign.
Sing this song for bread, peace, and justice. For bread, peace, and justice. Sing this song for justice, peace, and bread.
We now have the national anthem of Trinidad and Tobago, followed by a prayer. Almighty God, most beneficial and merciful, Creator of the universe and embodiment of divine wisdom and light, we come before you with thanksgiving and praise. May your will be done in our nation as it is in the heavens. Please bless our political leader, party officials, activists, and all the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Give us the grace to always see good, be good, and do good, and the courage to serve the people. Protect us as we stand against injustice and iniquity, and inspire our endeavors to find the right solutions to the problems that are affecting our fellow citizens. Grant that we may always work together with humility and respect for the greater happiness of all and the honor and glory of our country. Amen. From across the nation, we are the United National Congress, and this is our virtual report. In the image of the United National Congress, Councillor Ramona Victor.
A pleasant good night to the Honourable Political Leader and Member of Parliament for Superior, Mrs. Kamala Persad Bisesa, UNC family, and you, the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, a pleasant good night. He who thinks that standing in a long line in the hot sun to access a hamper is greediness, I challenge you to live for 1 month with a disability grant of $2,000 or a food support card that is $650 per month, or a senior citizen pension of $3,500. Many people, after paying different utility bills, are left without money to buy a proper meal. Most people depend on hampers and corporate Trinidad and Tobago to survive. People are willing to work, you know. They are willing to earn a salary. But guess what? No measures are put in place by this PNM government for job seekers. Not a day goes by when I am not contacted by my purchasers looking for employment. Single mothers, young people who have all their CXC passes, university graduates are also at the mercy of the plague of unemployment that has been rampant under this current PNM government. I could remember in Mrs. Kamla Persad-Bissessa administration, I could have gone to the grocery, just pick up my items and head straight to the cash register. Today, my brothers and sisters, you cannot do that. You have to take out your device, check the items just to save yourself the embarrassment of not being able to pay when you reach to the cash register. I remember the days when young people found joy in pushing a trolley full of food supplies. But now, supermarket workers claim long-time trolley work was nice, but not now. Customers do not have enough money to give a tip, and when they purchase items, it's enough to hold in your hands. Please, Mr. Prime Minister, decrease the price of food. The cost of living is sky high, and our citizens' pockets are down low. Today marks the start of a new school term. It may be as well the start of a nightmare for so many parents and children. Parents who are without still have to equip their children with essentials for school. Let me remind you all of something. Nelson Mandela said, education is one of the most powerful weapons that can be used to change the world. Today, the PNM government is hindering so many children from receiving quality education due to the Ministry of Education lack of concern and support in providing laptops and electronic devices to the vulnerable in society, in assisting them in their education. Most of us have decided to educate our children today to create a better life for tomorrow. But even the Ministry of Education has failed us. While some complain of face-to-face or online or else, there are some who have no physical school to call their own. On the 19th of August 2021, the visionary leader, Mrs. Kamla Persad-Bissessa, wrote to the Ministry of Education highlighting the need to have urgent repair works done to the infrastructure of the Saparia Hindu School primary school. So this is the letter written by Mrs. Kamla Persad-Bissessa on behalf of the Saparia Hindu School. As the landslip is posing a serious threat to the school, its staff, and its students. In July, cracks were observed by the school staff in the southeastern side of the school compound. Following the recent heavy rainfall, the cracks along the ground widened and further developed into a landslide, which is approximately 100 feet in length and 10 feet in depth. The landslip, if not addressed immediately, will eventually claim the nearby school building and ultimately affect all school students and their parents. It will affect their studies, most importantly, especially during this crucial time. It should be noted, to date, as the start of the school term, there has been no response from the Ministry or the Minister of Education. As our political leader always says, education is the passport out of poverty. So please, Mr. Prime Minister, stop robbing our children of a better life. We, the citizens, are constantly choosing which pothole to drive through when we drive through Maury Trace, Sign Village, Kura Road, Salt Mine Trace, San Francisco, Budram Trace. And that is just to name a few of the distressed locations within the Superior East, San Francisco South Electoral District. Our road needs maintenance. Please, Mr. Prime Minister, release adequate funds to the Superior Regional Corporation so they can conduct the urgent work needed to serve our purchases. The Superior Regional Corporation need money for road paving and repairing the corporation vehicles, which is needed for the operation of its day-to-day running. Gonzales Branch Trace, which was paved under Mrs. Kamala Persad-Bissessar administration, the honorable political leader, we thank you. Because now Gonzales Branch Trace is now the alternative road to get to and from Superior due to a major landslip at LP number 3, Sign Village, Pinal. So this is a photo of the landslip in Sign Village. And because of our political leader today, we have an alternative road to get to and out of Pinal to Superior. Thank you again, political leader. In Jokan Trace, Dobasa Trace, Banwari Trace, drains and rivers are filled to capacity. Anytime the rain falls, Trinidad and Tobago is flooded out. Yet, no water in our taps. Why not have retention ponds to capture and save our rainwater to supply our country? We are constantly notified of water disruptions of the supply of water. But how can a service be disrupted when it is non-functional? Please, somebody help us. We need water not to flood out our homes, but we need the water in our tap. Now it's COVID, now it's a pandemic. We need the water to sanitize and to keep safe and clean. Areas that are not prone to flooding is currently affected by flood waters. Access to our homes are denied. Appliances are useless. All spoil. No jobs, and a government with no action plan to take Trinidad and Tobago forward. Landslides in every area of Trinidad and Tobago. But the only rush for this PNM government is a state of emergency. What about the ability to build, protect, and provide for our citizens? Please, Mr. Prime Minister, have mercy on us, the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, and give us a fighting chance to enjoy our beloved country, Trinidad and Tobago. I thank you.
In the image of the United National Congress, the chairman, Mr. Henry Awang.
The leader of the opposition and political leader of the United National Congress, the Honorable Kamala Persad-Bissessar, other speakers on the platform tonight, my UNC family, and all those who are logged on virtually, pleasant good evening. I always say local government deals with the everyday needs of the people. So when you wake up in the morning, you want to know that your garbage is collected, you want to know that your sidewalks are clean, you want to know that your drains are clean, you want to know that the cemeteries are well kept, that the play parks and open spaces are maintained. So we deal with the everyday needs of the people. On Thursday night, I was watching the CPL T20 cricket match with the TKR versus the Amazon Warriors. But I had an extremely long day, so I knocked out while watching the game. I heard it was a really good game with the super over coming into play. But getting back to the point, I got up around probably 1:15 a.m. to a dark house and realized there was no electricity. Then I noticed that my phone was vibrating every second. On checking my phone, the messages were indeed coming from my consular colleagues posting on our group chat, on our emergency response chat. The messages were about the areas that were being affected with the type of damages occurring to our Burgesses' properties at that time. And we all know about the heavy winds on Thursday night into Friday morning. This will tell us that at that hour, persons in their time of need were confident enough to reach out to their counselors and to reach out for help. But for me, what is more important to note is your UNC counselors stepping up to the challenge. At 1 a.m., up from sleep, answering each and every call and text sent to them by their Burgesses. This went on for the entire day, together with visiting affected homes, ensuring that their people are attended to. The record will show so far the CTTRC, that's the Couva Tabaki Talpa Regional Corporation, through the Disaster Management Unit, has recorded over 114 blown off roofs, 21 fallen trees on homes, 13 fallen trees across the roadways. But I am pleased to tell you that we have almost completed 100% of assessment on all reports coming into the Disaster Management Unit. I want to ask our UNC counselors to take a bow at all hardworking members of the various disaster management units, such as our very own at the CTTRC, the flagship disaster management unit in Trinidad. But just to drive the point home of how efficient our counselors are, the UNC counselors are, there's a counselor by the name of Balmati Gosain. She called me on Friday after lunch and said to me, "Chairman, I was out since morning looking after my people, and I have press tomorrow morning because it's my son's birthday. And I have to do the necessary preparation, but I do not have a drop of water. Can you please assist?" So this single parent husband, who was my good friend, who was also a counselor, regrettably passed at a very young age, leaving Balmati to single-handedly raise her two kids, and I am more than proud to say that she's doing an excellent job. So tell me, isn't that dedication by a UNC counselor? Even though she had prayers the following day to celebrate her son's birthday, she was on the ground taking care of her Burgesses. But it's in our DNA to place the people first. In 2010, our esteemed leader and the next Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, the Honorable Kamala Persad-Bissessar, told us, "Put on your boots and serve the people." We are just following our leader. I've mentioned Balmati dedication, and I can say the same for all my colleagues. A couple of weekends ago, one of my consular colleagues, Councillor Anil Baliram, representative for the electoral district of Chiclan Freeport, took up his work on a Sunday morning and joined the Burgesses at Grand Couva to cut the road verges. As these have been neglected by the Minister of Works and Transport, now the councillor, Sunday morning, leaving his home, leaving his family, going into Grand Couva, joining with the Burgesses and the residents of Grand Couva to brush cut the road verges. That is dedication and service, my people. UNC-style dedication to service. I'm so happy I have been given this opportunity to speak here this evening. I want to use this opportunity to sound a warning. With regards to the issue of strong winds we experienced for approximately probably 15 minutes or so on Friday morning, causing so many roofs to be blown off, What if we were to be faced with a category 1 or 2 hurricane for a longer time frame? I can answer this question without thinking twice. It would be devastating. We are not ready. We are not prepared as a people, as a nation. I say this to tell you, the time has come for us to concentrate on building resilience to mitigate against disaster happening. In other words, we need to be more proactive. Global warming is real, and incidents like these will continue to happen on a frequent basis. The government must assist those in need to at least stabilize their roofs, use the National Commission for Self-Help to provide the material, and the corporation can assist with skilled and unskilled labor. They should also use the $16.3 million payout from the Caribbean Catastrophic Risk Insurance Facility to implement this program. But talking about this insurance payout, I noted with great concern that a payment was made between 2017 and 2018. Where did that money go? I can recall people in my region were drowning in flood waters during that period and lost almost every household appliance. They never knew they were insured, and payment was made to the tune of $9.5 million US. They never benefited from that. I remember over 1,000 persons being affected in that heavy floods, I think it was in 2018, when our leader came down to Las Lomas and so on. But we never knew the people was insured. We never knew we were insured. And there are people up to this point in time who have not received one black cent. They have not received any replacement of appliances and furniture and so on. So where did that money go? I am calling as the chairman of the Cuba Tabaqui Talpa Regional Corporation, one of the largest corporations in this country. I'm calling the government on behalf of all those who suffered losses due to the excessive rainfalls for payment to be made to them, to all of them, all who suffered losses. The insurance is for them, not to put in the government coffers to use as they want. I want to take a few minutes to highlight some of the things about the Ministry of Works and Transport. Recently, the regional corporation and councillors have been receiving strong criticism for roads that falls under the jurisdiction of the Ministry of Works and Transport, and more so the Highways Division. I can understand the frustration of the people when the main roads are not properly maintained, sidewalks are not cut, some overgrown with bush, the road verges overgrown, no outlet for the water to run out, not a pothole being fixed. Daily we plead for assistance, and the only response we could get from the Ministry of Works and Transport is no equipment, no manpower, no material. My question to the Minister of Works, however, is this only happening in Central or South Trinidad? Or is it that you intend to close down the Ministry of Works? If my regional corporation and I as the chairman and my councillors are to take bashing for Ministry of Works, roads and so on, then give us the responsibility and the resources to get it done. Let the Ministry of Works only deal with the highways. Because we are taking bashing Councillor Balriama to take up his waka and join people that cut, the Grand Couva Road. So what is this happening with regards to the maintenance of the Ministry of Works roads? I just want to mention in Brasso Venado, the people wrote to the Minister of Works with regards to the deplorable conditions of the Brasso Tamana Road. I also wrote, they highlighted it on the national television. They WhatsApp the minister, I saw it. Marlon Villafana in Brasso Venado WhatsApp the minister. The minister did respond and say he'd look into it. That was more than a year ago. Up to now, nothing has happened. On Saturday, the people, through Marlon Villafana herself, who is the spokesperson for that community, they reached out to me saying that they were going to try and purchase the material because nothing is forthcoming from the Minister of Works or the Ministry of Works. Now, that is an advantage on the people who live in that rural community. Where in these trying times of COVID restrictions and joblessness, they have to make chichi to buy material to fix the Ministry of Works road. That is blatant advantage and disrespect for the people in rural communities. People in Brasso Venado may have farmers, some planting vegetable crops to sell in the market. They have to take up their own little small funds now to try and fix the Ministry of Works road. That is an advantage against the people in that community. So my brothers and sisters, you see, it's not about funding, It's about the PNM, rural neglect. Always, every time the PNM is in power, rural communities are neglected. I can tell you about Brassaville and that same village. We had no water for years, since ever. And we would have kept meetings with the Minister of Public Utilities at that time and other people from WASA and so on. And they was always telling us that it was never feasible. But in 2014, under Kamala Persad-Bissessar and a UNC in government, we were able to get water in those both communities. So it is not about no funding and it's about feasibility studies. It's about the political will to get it done. So my brothers and sisters, I want to ask you to keep the faith. The sun will rise again soon, and we shall overcome. God bless and have a good evening. Thank you so much.
3 black men were killed in full view on video, just as we are seeing now in America. And all of a sudden, we have reactionary politics from Keith Rowley. The usual. Community Recovery Committee.
Pre-recorded at our virtual space, Senator David Nakid.
In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful, people of Trinidad and Tobago, these are indeed dire times, dire circumstances for our country. We are faced, of course, with unprecedented catastrophes, whether they be of a natural occurrence or we have this PNM government. And I'm going to be, as I am always, brutally honest today, because we need to have that national conversation of where we are, not only as a country, but as a people. Never in our history have we been placed in a situation where we are, in fact, ruled by a dictator. And I'm of the opinion, and I've said it before, if it looks like a duck, it walks like a duck, then we have to call it what it is. Maya Angelou said it best. If someone shows you who they are, believe them. But here in Trinidad and Tobago, we are so accustomed to making excuses because we have a benefit. And we do it to the detriment of our own country, our own people, and sometimes our own families, because we do not see what lies ahead of us. So I was talking briefly with my son, who is a psychologist in London. And we were just talking in general, and I was telling him about what we are facing in Trinidad and Tobago. And he said to me, Dad, a dictator's reality is shaped with the belief that everything revolves around him, pretty much like a baby does. So if the dictator believes that he's fine financially, if he's fine socially, then you are fine. Then we are all fine. If his children are educated, we should appreciate the fact that his children are educated. Doesn't matter if your children aren't. Doesn't matter if education has been cut. No. That's not the mindset of a dictator. And I want us to understand that as a people. And this is for all across all lines. Because I'll show you the reality of what I'm talking about. We have another saying in the Middle East, and I want you to think about this saying as I finish my submission. We say in the Middle East, Kalb al-Amir, Emir. The dog of the prince thinks he's a prince. So what a dictator does, he has people around him who encourages, enforces, reinforces, makes him believe that he is this anointed one. There are seldom people around the dictators who will offer counter-arguments, counterpoints. That's just not how dictators work. They want people around them who can massage their ego and tell them, yes, boss, whatever you're doing is fine. And we have no end of those in the PNM government, and specifically in the PNM cabinet. You know, so we have Fitzgerald Hines, and I'll never forget this Minister of National Security, which he is now, had a big poster opposite Hope Gardens in Beetham. Big poster of himself with his brand new watch on, immaculately dressed. We'll forget about the face, but immaculately dressed with a big heading, embrace our success. Embrace our success. Right opposite was Hope Gardens. Now if you know, you're not acquainted with Hope Gardens, there is no hope. Squalor everywhere. I went inside Hope Gardens. Poor infrastructure, of course, no services, water, poor electricity, everything. 100%, it looks like you could take it out of a refugee camp, a Palestinian refugee camp, that would be Hope Gardens. And he has a big sign. So I did make a video and highlighted that, and of course they took down the sign. But that has never left me. Because when you're dealing with people with a certain psychosis, dictatorial psychosis, they honestly believe once they are fine, you are fine. So Rowley, who has surrounded himself with the requisite cronies and lackeys in order to affirm this inane behavior that he has, and I don't want us to dwell on that. I don't want us to dwell on the fact that he comes and buffs and we make everything a meme in Trinidad and Tobago. We have to get away from that. Imagine that within this society, we can make a meme of the Prime Minister talking about, well, if you close your fridge door and you didn't hear me, I'm not closing down Petrochin. And that is a meme. And we'll laugh at that and go on that and say what a liar he is, which we all know. Forgetting the actual reality and the actual takeaway of that is 11,000 workers lost their jobs and livelihoods. 11,000. Not to mention all the tangential services that came out of that refinery of Petrotrin. 11,000 workers. So we have to look beyond the superficial that they distract us with. That is very important for our discussion today, for our national conversation. We need to get to the bareness, the nitty-gritty of where we are and where this government under Keith Rowley has brought us. So, what we need to do, once we establish that he has shown us who he is, Keith Rowley, what is important to our people on the ground, our people suffering, our people who would like to see better, because we have people, let's be honest, that continue to thrive even in this economy. But I don't think any one of us wants to see the country as it is. And I'll tell you why. Even our moneyed class, what would be their concern if the country keeps going as it's going? Their concern, of course, is their safety, their security for them and their children. And that's a valid concern. They're not concerned if they can buy food or they don't need a hamper. They don't need to hear Donna Cox telling them they're greedy, not needy. And they don't need that. The moneyed class, the people who are well off, they're worried about their security as well as they should. Because nobody, no sector of the society in any country is going to see their children hungry, their families hungry, and you thriving and surviving while they are not. So if we are all in this together, if we are in this fight together as we like to preach, and in my opinion, this is what the esteemed Archbishop Jason Gordon should have been preaching. If we are all in this together, then we should have embraced that national ethos of togetherness across the divide. Instead of perhaps he embraces the government propaganda line of faith against stupidity, which I found very unfortunate from the esteemed Archbishop. And as a member of a family who is one of the pillars of the Catholic community, from St. Joseph to Tinapuna, I feel I have the license to comment on that unfortunate comment that Keith Rowley then seized upon to make us believe that the Archbishop was in support of his surreptitious mandatory vaccination policy. But I'll go into that at another time, and perhaps Archbishop and I can have a debate on what is faith against stupidity, because Jesus represented absolute faith, and his denial of the devil was not because he weighed stupidity, it was because a person of absolute faith does not answer to the devil or any demands or requests from the devil. And Jesus did have absolute faith. So to say that he did not go off the cliff because he weighed faith against stupidity was itself antithetical to Catholic theology. Anyway, how do we look at the dictatorial tendencies, if not the acts of a Keith Rowley, that tend to contaminate, infect, shape government policy? This is our concern. We don't care if Keith Rowley is a dictator in his house, with his family, with his servants or whoever. We care how these tendencies that he has and displayed, how does that contaminate, infect, and shape government policy? Well, here we go. Imagine in education, children back to school online, and we have almost 49,000 children out of the system. How is that possible? Because a dictator doesn't consult. And we've had complaints from all stakeholders in the education system, tutor and so forth, that they haven't really been meaningfully consulted. So we're not really ready, and we haven't readied our children for online learning. The school's in a mess. How can you have this, even if it's a hybrid learning system, and I was part of that JSC, that committee, how can you have any meaningful progress in education with so many without devices, without connectivity? You're leaving generations behind. What do we care now in this time of want, in this time of need, to have $150 million airport in Tobago or wherever, which might reach the 300 million or whatever the cost of 1.5 billion. I mean, in a time when you can use 100 million of that money for laptops, for devices for the kids. That is something we need to prosecute and realize that all those kids, all those children, young boys and young girls that fall out of the education system, that we allow, they don't fall out. We allow them to fall out. This government allows them to fall out by being visionless in a policy that the political leader of the UNC, Kamla Persad-Bissessar, brought to fruition. How on earth, if you have the people of the country's interests at heart, that you would not seek to correct that? Are you so much of a dictator that you would not admit to having botched that and seek to correct that as quickly as possible? But you have us like laptop vagrants. You have the 4 laptops from here, from this business, and 5 from here, and sometimes somebody might give 100 from here. We are laptop vagrants for a country that was aspiring to a first world vision by 2020. And now we have 49,000 people outside of the system. And that's because a dictator never consults. And even if he consults, it's never meaningful. It's just a big puppy show. And the media, complicit with that, never prosecutes it. Because we have a media right now that should be ashamed of itself. So even if we go into the health sector, how does Rowley's dictatorial tendencies affect that? Well, we have the issue of the vaccines. Only somebody without remorse, without any empathy, when approached by the political leader of the opposition, who recommended to him, consult with us, let's approach anybody, let's get those vaccines. And he said, no, we are not beggars. Dog whispering that we shouldn't beg India for vaccines. And then we turned around and had to beg almost everybody for vaccines. But then we were 2-3 months late. 2-3 months late in a pandemic is suicidal. In Rowley's case, it can even be termed homicidal. Why? Look at the death rate. In February, our business sector came to the government and said we can procure 350,000 vaccines. And the best vaccines in the world. Pfizer. By all accounts, the best vaccines in the world. This government likes to talk about the population being vaccine hesitant. They are not. Why? As soon as there were Pfizer available, look at what happened over the weekend. Hundreds lined up for Pfizer. So it wasn't vaccine hesitancy. As is the right of the population, right of every citizen, it was vaccine intelligence. The population had access to information. They knew what would be an effective vaccine for them, what would be the best. As soon as Pfizer was made available, they rushed for the Pfizer, which was a big sign to the government that it was never about hesitancy. The population was not satisfied with the vaccines that you procured. And you procured those vaccines under what? An NDA. God knows, God alone knows what price we have to pay, what part of our soul we have to give up. And why? Was that necessary in these times? That everything now, because it's a dictator we deal with, has to be secret, has to be under an NDA, non-disclosure agreement, or has to be, we will let you know later. No, Keith Rowley. You have to let us know now. We are not your children to dictate to. You work for us, the taxpayers of Trinidad and Tobago. That money is not for you and Stuart Young. I talk about the dog of the prince. That is Stuart Young. Stuart Young is Keith Rowley 15 years ago. To run out and back at whatever he perceives as a threat to his boss. So he will come out and say, on the matter of NGC, for example, 440 million. At best, incompetence of the highest order. Mismanagement of the highest order. At worst, criminal activity. $440 million. You can indemnify the board, Loquan and Enel and whoever on that board, to the tune of $440 million. You can indemnify malfeasance, possible corruption, and you cannot find $100 million for the young children of Trinidad and Tobago to be online in education. And look at the brazenness of this wannabe dictator. Look at the brazenness. When asked about it, he said, yes, I indemnify them. Why? Oblivious to what is going around him, he feels that he could say that because we have to take that. Well, no, Keith Rowley. No, Prime Minister Rowley. We don't have to take that. We have to prosecute this, and we will prosecute this. Because this bit of malfeasance, this, as far as I am concerned, the worst mismanagement that we have ever seen just took place with NGC. And we're not going to take you or Stuart Young talking down to the population and telling them, wait, or in sensitive negotiations. Everything's sensitive. Or money being spent, procuring without procurement. Next thing, Wassa on the line with Minister Marvin Gonzalez. You think we don't recognize the signs? Complaint every day, every weekend a complaint about this and about that and about that, and then next thing, privatization of the water. No. We'll stop this one dead in its tracks. Keith Rowley. What an opportunity if we had somebody as Prime Minister who would consult. So what an opportunity we missed to have a real parallel healthcare system. Not this one, this failed gang of junior doctors try to inflict upon us or professors was a parallel healthcare system. If we had a real parallel healthcare system, something that will deal with preventative measures, that people will not get COVID, that people will strengthen their immune systems, then they would really say to this government, you know what? They would say to this government, you know what? Let's open the beaches. Let's open the playgrounds. Because as Fauci said, contrary to what the lie that Rowley and his minions would like to perpetrate, and it's something our political leaders said many times, sunlight, fresh air would kill COVID. Boost the immune system, the vitamin D. We've had none of that. So we've had no input by a slovenly, comatose Minister of Agriculture, Clarence Chamberlain. In this time, according to all WHO directives, money should have been put into agriculture, education, and of course health. But health, as we spoke about the vaccines, 6 billion, and as soon as someone lands in the ICU or HDU, then it's bye-bye Papa. And this is no reflection on the nurses and the doctors. It's a reflection on the facilities, because I've been there, I've seen it. There's no way that this is a government that has paid attention to our healthcare infrastructure. If that was the case, then Keith Rowley, when he got COVID, allegedly, wouldn't be run into a private healthcare system, would he? He would feel comfortable to go into the public healthcare system. So we have poverty rampant in this country. And speaking with people across the board, from all different sectors, from the moneyed class to the poor and working class, citizens really have sustained this country in this time. Citizens, they have done that. Hampers here, food given everywhere. I mean, I've seen our UNC MPs with little resources, our UNC senators, hampers and trying to help as much as they can. Can we say the same about this government? Have they used the resources optimally? Or do we see the wanton wastage, as we've seen with NGC, as we've seen with the monetization of the vaccinations? And all of this comes back to the person in charge, the man in charge, who feels that his benefit, his welfare, is our welfare. And I would like our people to reflect on that in the national conversation. In this time, at this hour, we should say, come at the hour, come at the man. Not come at the hour, come at the dictator. Come at the hour, come at the man or the woman who can take us out of this situation we are in. who can take us out of these circumstances, who can bring equity to the poor and working class communities, who can give them a measure of hope, who can give them a national vision to embrace. And I say to you, citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, don't be distracted by the narrative. The UNC under Kamla Persad-Bissessar was in power for 5 years, 2010 to 2015. No one, after 6 years in their right mind, should come and blame anything on the UNC. And the media shouldn't be supporting that narrative if they were doing their jobs. There's so much to prosecute about a government that has been inept, incompetent, and at times criminally incompetent. So I look forward to this national conversation. I look forward to the media doing their jobs as they should and prosecuting the case against Keith Christopher Rowley and his band of incompetence, his band of cabinet members who have turned the cabinet into a transactional committee rather than a committee, a cabinet that promotes the policies and implements the policies to make this country a better place. So I thank you, Trinidad and Tobago, for allowing me into your homes tonight. I look forward to good sense on this matter, nothing partisan. I look forward to us seeing Keith Rowley just for who he is and what he is, and for us to make the right decisions when the time is right. And we must have legal agitation in order to bring this criminal government down and return Kamla Persad-Bissessar and the UNC into a position of governance that can take us out of this nightmare we are in. I thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
The issue of no child must be left behind, and to include in the discussions a framework for an equitable education system. An equitable education system must and ought to be a constitutional right for every child.
From our national headquarters and virtual space, former UNC Member of Parliament, Dr. Tim Gopi Singh.
Good evening to our esteemed opposition leader, former Prime Minister and leader of the opposition, the Honorable Mrs. Kamla Persad-Bissessar, my fellow speakers on the platform, and to all joining us on this virtual platform tonight. I'm here to speak with you this evening on some key issues affecting our country. As Trinidad and Tobago continue to spiral downwards into an abyss of poverty, economic crisis, and overall ruins, all because of the wanton ineptitude, the corruption, the mismanagement, and woeful incompetence of Prime Minister Rowley and his regime. Just imagine 1.5 years into this coronavirus, in fact, almost 20 months, where we have been forced to endure draconian lockdowns, which has led to massive unemployment, poverty, job loss, and overall stress and hardships of the Trinidad and Tobago population. This administration is still facing vaccine hesitancy from citizens 20 months later. As of now, we have just about 37% of the population who have taken their first vaccine and 30% who have been fully vaccinated. And are we trying to reach herd immunity? Herd immunity was considered to be established at about 70 to 75% of the population. But now with the various variants coming on board, 85% seems to be the new target set by WHO. Do you really believe we will be able to achieve this in any future time? When from now? How long from now that we will achieve herd immunity so that we'll feel a lot more comforted in reduction of the spread of the infection of COVID. There exists widespread national distrust of the government's COVID-19 vaccine policies and programs. As recent polls show, the population has a tremendous distrust and loss of respect for Prime Minister Rowley, Minister Dayal Singh, and their team of public health doctors who are advising the government, the team of 4. The people have seen through many untruths and blatant, dangerous propaganda spilled daily on their briefings before the national television. Now citizens are bored, they're fed up, they're disgusted with their daily nothingness. Very few, if at all, listen to the daily press conferences now, which are simply political diatribe and P&M platitudes, lacking any scientific education, devoid of any real, worthwhile medical information and advice that can and that will actually convince the thousands of citizens who are still hesitant to take the vaccines, or as to how it will benefit them. Where the expert teams, Prime Minister, to educate the anti-vaxxers and the citizens who are still unsure, the parents who are still unsure, because of the widespread social media campaign by the anti-vaxxers? Why can't you come forward and get the best in the country and the best minds to come forward in education programs across social media and on the national televisions and on the virtual education platforms? Where are the virologists, the bacteriologists, the geneticists, the cardiologists, the nephrologists, the behavioral psychologists, the psychiatrists, the pediatricians, all who can be very helpful in changing the mindset of the ones who are still questioning their wanting to take the vaccine? There is a lot to be done by educating the population. Many people are afraid what it will happen to their DNA, and a lot of myths and fallacy going around in the social media. Many are questioning the side effects that can occur. Those who have major comorbidities are afraid to come forward for their vaccines. They need to be educated. And so you have not embarked after 20 months with any education process. And this is why you find yourself now with a widespread situation of vaccine hesitancy. From Prime Minister Dr. Rowley to Minister Diyal Singh to every single one of their teams of public health doctors, it seems as though nobody is trusting you all anymore. Parents who have children between 12 and 18, teachers many are still unvaccinated, and even nurses who are still unvaccinated in the public health system, nobody believes anything that you say. Prime Minister Rowley, you have failed to address in any credible, comprehensive manner their fears and anxieties over the vaccines. You have failed this country in its greatest hour of need. You must be extremely concerned and unhappy, are you not, of your serious and abysmal non-performance in this pandemic? Let me ask you, are you not pained by it? Do you really feel you have performed creditably? Not at all. And you know what has caused this? It has been your constant untruths, some say arrogance, and blatant cover-ups and incompetence from the very onset to deal with this pandemic in a transparent manner. 20 months have passed, and you're unable to have a grip on the situation, and you're rather guessing and hoping on a daily basis when we see you before the national television. Let me remind this country of Rowley's government's history of COVID-19's untruths, mismanagement, and cover-ups. It has been a well-established fact in the public domain, which I have personally pointed out on numerous occasions since the beginning of this pandemic in January 2020, that Prime Minister Rowley, Minister Diyal Singh and their team have deliberately failed to protect and preserve the health, safety and lives of our citizens due to the acute and often questionable mismanagement of the COVID-19 crisis. The opposition United National Congress, spearheaded by our political leader herself, as well as other independent medical doctors and other experts in their fields, have also consistently offered Prime Minister Rowley and his government plethora of advice, suggestions and recommendations as how to adequately treat with the pandemic and save lives. But he chose to blatantly, arrogantly, and dangerously ignore them. Let me remind Prime Minister Rowley and his government and our citizens of the PNM's disastrous failed mismanagement of the coronavirus pandemic thus far. And let me give you a brief summary of their track record. The Rowley's regime refusal to have the COVID-19 pandemic discussed in the nation's interests at a parliamentary level on 5 occasions from as early as January 2020, just 2 months after it started in Wuhan, China. Rowley's refusal of repeated invitations from the opposition leader and the United National Congress to meet to formulate a bipartisan approach to battle the pandemic's deadly ravaging effects. One meeting was held in March 2020, 17 months ago. The Health Ministry's unpreparedness to do adequate testing early in 2020 and its failure to provide adequate PPE for medical workers, you remember those times, and its deliberate under-testing in the early months of the pandemic in 2020. For what reason? For advantageous general election political purposes, to steal the elections. So far, private citizens have spent nearly $300 million having to do their own PCR testing in private COVID-19 tests in private labs. Over 250,000 tests have been done in private labs. Where is the government assisting these citizens? When they do tests in the public labs, it takes 6 to 7 days to get the results. Now, this is unconscionable for poor citizens having to find $1,500 TT to do the PCR testing privately. You remember the Minister of Health saying no need for masks, then changes, and he said you can tear up a jersey and make a mask. Their top doctor saying COVID-19 is a little thing, is a small thing. The Minister of Health saying we should not have an onslaught of COVID-19 cases, it may be 1 or 2 isolated cases. Constantly misleading the population, every week changing your story. 1 week it's not an issue, next week it's a crisis. And listen to this, the Chief Medical Officer now who is advising the government for the last 17 months, who said in February 2020 at a Joint Select Committee of Parliament, he gave an outright dismissal of the idea of COVID-19 reaching our shores, February 2020, and suggested that TT was more at risk for gastroenteritis. This is our Chief Medical Officer, main advisor to the government now. The medical advisors are like 3 peas in a pod. One reading charts and colors of graphs, the other telling you how many beds are occupied, and the CMO telling you what you know on WHO website and what you can obtain from the WHO website. What a waste. Why don't they try to educate the population, get people to come forward and allay their anxieties and their fears? And today I echo the calls of the Leader of the Opposition for their resignation or removal forthwith, because they are doing absolutely nothing to help the situation at the moment, wasting the public time, expecting the public to come and look at them on the national television, hear what they have to say, but they have absolutely nothing to say. A waste of time. There had been massive confusion and uncertainty regarding vaccine availability. The Prime Minister had refused 341,000 vaccines from the corporate body. There was a secret purchase and non-disclosure agreement, it says, for 750,000 Sinopharm vaccines. The Prime Minister said he wouldn't beg for vaccines while our citizens were dying. The Health Ministry's failure to secure sufficient ICU beds and equipment for all hospitals. They brought in temporary ICU equipment. Dayal Singh boasted he could get 72 ICU beds available, but today there are only about 24 to treat the entire population of Trinidad and Tobago. Now look at what is happening in Tobago. They have run out of ICU beds. 2 hospitals in Tobago, 6 patients needing ICU support, 5 ICU beds available. The 6th one will have to be outside, dying while waiting to get a bed. Isn't this a travesty? Prime Minister, you go to Tobago frequently. You love Tobago. We all love Tobago. Don't you feel a sense of shame or a sense of moral duty and conscience to Tobago people as Tobago patients die from the lack of ICU beds? Imagine 78 people have died in Tobago so far, whereas previous to this movement of 50,000 people across the Tobago, their death rate was less than about 5. What have you done to the people in Tobago? The questionable move by the unqualified political hack, the Carnival stage worker, NCRHA CEO Davlin Thomas, to move 6 of the top COVID-19 doctors from the Couva Hospital at the end of April 2021. Why did he do this? And this directly correlates to a massive increase in the COVID-19 death rates at HDUs, that's the high dependency units and the intensive care units and emergency areas in COVID-19 tents. The Health Ministry refusal to listen to the concerns of the 17 senior doctors at the Eric Williams Medical Sciences Complex as to how Davlin Thomas' malicious move has negatively impacted on patient care at the Couva ICU and the HDU units, resulting in preventable deaths. The continued use of less experienced junior doctors to manage the ICU and HDU patients while marginalizing the very experienced, qualified, medically highly trained, distinguished consultants. They are out of the system. Young doctors are looking after the patients in the ICUs and HDUs while patients die. And there are lots of deaths that could be prevented by having the expertise in the HDUs and in the ICUs. But they are far from it. Moved out by Davlin Thomas and the board of the North Central Regional Health Authority. Insufficient nursing staff in the ICUs and HDUs, when there should be 1 nurse to 2 patients and 1 doctor probably for every 3 or 4 patients. Why have you understaffed the ICUs? And this has been confirmed by the Nursing Association, where they said that the RHAs have been dangling 3-month contracts and 6-month contracts, and in many cases, no contracts. What has happened? Why you have decided to not to help from a social perspective and a medical perspective the 10,000 COVID-19 positive patients at one time at home without providing them with medical assistance or supervision or social support, causing a massive spread of the virus during the lockdown at home, and in some cases, family members dying. You didn't even give them pulse oximeters. You could have purchased oxygen concentrators at $200 US each. This is about 1,500. 1,000 of these could be $15 million. Could you not purchase oxygen concentrators for at home? Or leave half of that, or even 1/10 of that? The failure by the Health Ministry to provide families of COVID-19 patients updates of their relatives' conditions at the ICUs and HDUs. Sometimes for days they don't know what is happening to their family, and even up to 3 weeks in some cases, and then to be told that their loved ones have passed and asked to come and see their bodies in the mortuary. You get a peep of the body, and sometimes the bodies are not in the mortuary but somewhere else. This is what is happening in this country at the moment still. And the PNM and this government must hold itself in shame, headed shame. And then you remember the failure to procure enough COVID vaccines at an early and timely date, and the Rowley government's refusal to embark on a national vaccine education campaign, which could have been done long ago in a timely fashion. The invitation for Prime Minister Rowley for 50,000 citizens to intermingle over the Easter 2021 weekend in Tobago leading to a massive rise in cases 3 weeks later. And disgusting attack on the family and supporters of crime victim Andrea Barrett when the people peacefully decided to hold vigils to protest rampant crime. The endangering of elderly citizens' lives when the Helsing told them to gather at health centers for vaccines that were not available. Other Caribbean countries are way ahead in vaccination, while Trinidad and Tobago is still awaiting the 800,000 vaccines from the African Medical Support System. And the Prime Minister continues to repeat foolishness on the television on Saturdays when he comes talking about a shipment. We asked for a shipment of hydroxychloroquine. That's a lie, Prime Minister. We never asked for a shipment of hydroxychloroquine. We brought it to your attention that hydroxychloroquine was one of the drugs that was being considered by the FDA and WHO for approval. And we brought that early to your attention in March. We never asked for a shipment of COVID-19 vaccines. I have asked on numerous occasions for the figures and the statistics related to the COVID-19 deaths in the HDUs and ICUs. We suspect it is very high. Internationally, it's about 3 deaths per 10 patients in ICU. Why have they deliberately decided not to provide this information for the country? It's because they're fearful that the country would see their inability to deal with the patient care and the high rate of deaths that are occurring in the ICU and HDUs. I continue to call for a confidential inquiry into every COVID-19 related death in keeping with international best practice, and support our leaders' call for a commission of inquiry into the disastrous mismanagement of the pandemic, resulting in 326 loss of lives in May, 352 in June, 320 in July, and 214 in August. 1,122 citizens have died in 120 days, approximately 10 per day. And this probe, we repeatedly call for a confidential inquiry into this truly frightening state of affairs. Let me warn you all, the advisors, one day this will come to light you up, and you can be held culpable and responsible. And the findings and recommendations of this confidential inquiry must be made public, with a commitment that appropriate action will be taken where criminal negligence, misconduct, or malfeasance is found. I hope you all are hearing this, because you are doing nothing to save their lives, to improve the lives of the citizens who are in the intensive care and the HDUs. Where are your antiviral drugs like remdesivir? Your top doctor cannot pronounce the drug tocilizumab, because how many of these drugs have been used in the intensive care unit? Where are the monoclonal antibodies? Where is the plasma that is used in patients who have got COVID and have developed antibodies? Regeneron is selling them. How many of that have you brought to Trinidad and to help to save the lives of the people who have gone into the ICU? Ladies and gentlemen, the government must decide to accept help to fight this COVID-19. The esteemed opposition leader has often called and has stated up to recently that she was and still is and always willing to engage in meaningful, purposeful, bipartisan efforts to tackle this COVID-19 crisis. From the outset, she has said that the Rowley government cannot do it alone. And they must call on the national citizenry, work with all stakeholders, including the opposition, to ensure that we can effectively chart a way out of this, and it must be done soon. Let me quote from a BBC report. The Japanese Prime Minister Yoshida Suga said he will not run for re-election as party leader this month, signaling the end of his tenure. Mr. Sega approval ratings dropped to an all-time low. Japan, which is still under a state of emergency, is now grappling with its worst ever COVID wave. The country, which has now seen more than 1.5 million virus cases, has also been a slow vaccination rollout. He has resigned. He has decided not to run. Minister of Health, you take note. In Brazil, 3 ministers of health have been removed. Around the world, ministers of health have resigned. You must do the honorable thing and resign. This is what democratic leaders with integrity do when they have failed a country so disastrously as you have done. Because like the carnival runner ferry, as my good friend Gypsy once famously sang, the boat is sinking, the ship is sinking. Tonight I would have liked to speak a little more about the destruction of the education sector, but time will not permit me. Remember, we were ranking as one of the leading countries in the world. We were the first country to achieve universal early childhood education, as stated by Commonwealth Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. Presidential candidate Hillary Clinton congratulated TT on a seamless education program. We won awards at the Global Education Forum. We had the best academic performance in 2014 and we bettered it in 2015. And we were congratulated at a meeting of 102 ministers of education in London. Praise heaped on Trinidad and Tobago education system. 95,000 laptops, computer labs in 124 secondary schools and 300 primary schools. Training of thousands of teachers in various educational areas. Ensure that all primary school teachers achieve a university first degree. We were the center for virtual education in Latin America and the Caribbean. 2 million textbooks were given to students. Primary and secondary school curriculum reform. Continuous assessment for primary school SEA students in standard 3, 4, and 5. Construction of 106 schools and 72 at various levels of construction. Had morals, values, ethics introduced into the curriculum. And PNM has destroyed all of this in 6 years. DC destroyed in the first year. They scrapped the laptop program, allowed the school computer labs to be non-functional, reduced scholarships from 450 to 50 annually, destroyed the primary school curriculum, the virtual educare center destroyed, increased failure rates in secondary schools. 70,000 students are now deprived of any virtual education, and a whole generation of students have gone to waste now. Lack of devices, near 18 months. You have wiped out a generation of students, Prime Minister Rowley. No laptops for the students, no IT devices for 70,000 students, no Wi-Fi connectivity in many underprivileged areas, and significant reduction in GATE programs, TechVoc education. The students are paying fees now for COSTAT and UTT, no textbooks. And now they're going to even claim paternity for some of the schools that they're completing to build. They have completed 3 in 6 years. There are 69 more to be completed. Many of these 69 were almost 90 to 95% completed. 6 years to complete 3 schools. Because of his hate and vindictiveness and spite when he came into government, he decided that he will not do any of the schools that the UNC had started construction. The Prime Minister's constituency at that time, opposition leader Mrs. Bisessa, has 2 secondary schools in her constituency which were 75% completed. 2 secondary schools, Parvati and Shiva, boys, nothing. Dr. Monilal has the Ramai Hindu school, which is about 90% completed, nothing done. That is the destruction of the PNM. That is the destruction of Prime Minister Rowley. And as I close, I just want to bring to attention of the general public something that has been sent to me by Dr. Monilal and is circulating on public media, which is a confidential brief to the OECS heads of government, the legal dimensions of mandatory compulsory requirements for COVID-19 vaccinations, August 2021, written by Sir Charles Michael Dennis Byron and Professor Rose Marie Bell-Antoine. And they speak about 2 separate dimensions, the public law dimension, the private sector dimension. And their conclusion: there's ample provision in the OECS constitution's corresponding jurisprudence and medical data to support mandatory vaccination laws, even in the face of counter-arguments alleging violation of rights. Increasingly, the enduring state of the pandemic and the science is pointing to even more liberal rationales for compelling vaccines at the workplace. Ultimately, all actions and toward compulsory vaccination must be grounded in a firm belief that they are being done in the interests and sustainability of the economy and enterprise in the public interest, the interests of all workers, and as a last resort necessity. Those core principles will be what justifies actions in being reasonable and proportionate as required, and what will ultimately persuade a court. What prevents Prime Minister Rowley and his team from introducing and using this piece of jurisprudence advice for mandatory vaccines? I warn the population that this piece of advice given by one of the leading jurists in the Caribbean Court of Justice and the principal of the Hugh Wooding Law School in Trinidad, and I believe dean of the Faculty of Law, with the medical ethics supporting mandatory vaccination. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your listening to this, my presentation. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and greetings to UNC supporters, friends, family throughout Trinidad and Tobago, the Caribbean, and the rest of the world viewing our virtual Monday night forum this evening. A special welcome and hello to our big supporters in Canada. I believe it is in Ajax, Canada. Sukram and his team listening to us this evening, and all our supporters throughout the world. Today, brothers and sisters, we live in a country, Trinidad and Tobago, where everything that could have collapsed is about to collapse. The PNM governance has destroyed the institutions of this country, has destroyed the economy, is destroying the society, and undermining our health and welfare. Just today, an important vaccination site in the Penal-Debe area had to be closed, and it was closed because of flooding. So their failure to manage drainage has resulted in the closure of an important site to vaccinate our citizens and therefore prevent the spread of COVID-19. That is where their incompetence has led us. But it is not only that. Trinidad and Tobago is today a pothole republic. They have left our roads in a state of disrepair. In fact, just recently in the Beetham area, there's a sinkhole there developed in the constituency, I think, of Ethelbert Hines. And that sinkhole actually looks like a jacuzzi in the ground. Maybe he's promoting water sport there as well. Last Saturday, their vaccine confusion reached an all-time low when they canceled a vaccination drive in the San Fernando Gulfview area, where Senator Jayanti Lakshmi Dayal and Councillor Rishi Balram Singh, they had both arranged over 300 persons to come by appointments to get the vaccine. Instead, the PNM preferred to go in the Gulf City Mall, where they had 500 unvaccinated persons in an air-conditioned, closed area that could further spread COVID-19, so that the MPs and the council and the mayor could gallery and put their children to play pan and sing and so on. They are making now this vaccine drive into a PR drive, and that has certain consequences for life and death. Brothers and sisters, if that is not enough, their failed state of emergency has all but brought the economy to a halt. That state of emergency has not worked, as the Prime Minister of St. Vincent agreed with us recently by asking whether the COVID-19 comes out in the night. You will remember in Parliament, I asked Dr. Rowley if COVID-19 is a lagahu. It comes out in the night, but don't come out in the day, because the purpose of that state of emergency is ill-conceived. But I want to get immediately to an important matter, and several important matters on my agenda for you this evening. Dr. Gopi Singh, of course, had spoken before and spoken about the undocumented disaster that is the COVID management at this time. The administration of the PNM is limping in the wrong direction. As you will recall, brothers and sisters, they have presided over an issue of the helicopter, a national security asset. They grounded a helicopter, and last week we discovered that they almost sank a boat in San Fernando. A water taxi vessel called the Carnival Runner was left for 6 years in a state of disrepair. They could not get money to fix that vessel, and it began to sink last week. Of course, they blamed the UNC for that as well. Stuart Young and Rohan Sinanan were blaming the UNC for their poor maintenance over 6 years. Their arrogance knows no bounds, while they continue to waste money. But let me get to the immediate issues this evening for you, and it concerns, brothers and sisters, this shameful, obscene, vile, disgusting, and bold-faced attempt at the National Gas Company to provide an indemnity to members of the boards of directors of two companies, the NGC and a subsidiary company, the NGC LNG. And I want to get to that. This is the biggest scandal to face this country in decades. This will make the world GTL, gas to liquid scandal, look like a picnic. Let me begin by reminding you, viewers and listeners, that the National Gas Company has been for many decades the pride, the beacon of hope to our gas-based industrialization thrust. In fact, when we thought that the PNM could destroy every company, but NGC would survive, we were wrong. When we were in power, I just want to remind you, brothers and sisters, in the full years of the partnership administration under Kamla Persad-Bissessar, in 2011, NGC had an after-tax profit of $4.6 billion. In 2012, $4 billion profit. 2013, $6.5 billion in after-tax profit. 2014, NGC, $4.5 billion after-tax profits. Brothers and sisters, when we demitted office, NGC continued to decline. They continued to decline from 2015 to 2020, when in 2020, they had a loss, an historic loss of $2.1 billion. We managed NGC to a height of a profit of $6 billion per year. And contrary to what I'm hearing now from David Abdullah and others, when we were managing NGC, we used the profit of NGC for the furtherance of community development in Trinidad and Tobago, as the Manning administration had done. We used the profits of NGC for the betterment of the people, to build and refurbish sporting facilities, community facilities. NGC sponsored the national cricket team of Trinidad and Tobago, brothers and sisters. Abdullah talking nonsense now that we squandered money. We never squandered money. If we squandered money, how could you have an after-tax profit of $6 billion in 2014 and 2013 and thereabout? Abdullah spoke about the wastewater treatment plant. On another occasion, I will speak in detail about the Beetham wastewater plant, because that story is yet to be told. It is undocumented, but we do have documents from NGC. And one day we will speak about that, brothers and sisters, on another occasion. But I want to remind you, when Abdullah and the MSG and others were in that coalition government of the partnership under Kamla Persad-Bissessar, they didn't raise issues of policy. They didn't raise issues of program. Every Monday morning they come to see me. They want CPEP contract and HDC house. They were concerned with CPEP contract, HDC house. Not concerned with policy, not concerned with program, not concerned with legislative agenda. And to hear them now, because they cannot find the courage, they cannot find the fortitude to attack the PNM. They want to attack the PNM, but share blame with the UNC. We will have no such thing. The UNC managed the NGC with diligence. When we were managing the NGC, we made profits and returned some of those profits to the community, the national community. Today, a scandalous editorial come from the Express of yesterday, come clean on NGC debacle, and it raises these matters. I want to continue with this. Brothers and sisters, the story of NGC, if I may summarize, because it is complex at times. NGC is a small shareholder in Train 1, Atlantic Train Run. There are 4 trains managed by Atlantic LNG, operationalized there. In 1999, under the Pandey administration, Train 1 became operational. The shareholding structure of Train 1 is BP, Shell as the majority shareholders, with a smaller amount of shares to NGC, Trinidad and Tobago, and the China Investment Corporation, CIC. Today, I must tell you that since 2019 or thereabout, the contractual arrangement between Atlantic LNG and National Gas Company came to an end, that contract. But they were continuing on an interim extension of contractual arrangements. Finally, BP, which is the largest supplier of gas, and Shell, which is the largest shareholding block in Train 1, said clearly that there is no gas. We cannot continue with Train 1. The minority shareholder, which is NGC, took a decision that they will invest $500 million to upgrade, to provide for a rescue package, provide for rescue package, and to enhance Train 1. When the major shareholders, owners of Train 1 said we are not investing, there is no gas, NGC said, hold on, notwithstanding that $500 million we're giving you to upgrade. Brothers and sisters, this raises serious issues. On what grounds did NGC decide to upgrade? Did they have a business case? Did they have proper commercial reasoning and logic? Did they have documents? Did they have markets in mind? Where were they getting gas from? These matters came to the board, and in one of the most macabre meetings of that board on December 4, 2020, they met on December 2nd as well. On December 4, 2020, they took a decision to invest $500 million in a Train 1 that would in any event have to close because they had no gas. The NGC, from all the documents before us, and we have plenty documents, appears to be run by madmen and one mad woman who belong in St. Anne's. They committed that company, taxpayers' dollars, with the help of Rowley, with the help of Stuart Young, with the help of Imbert. All of these persons were behaving as if they were delusional lunatics. $500 million Rowley approved, Imbert approved, Stuart Young approved by their association with that decision to spend to upgrade for a rescue package. The day before the board meeting, BP indicated they advised NGC that you ought not to invest in Train 1 because there is no gas. Somehow they were going to find the gas. BP said there was no what is called offtake, meaning they had no customers, no investment. NGC gone ahead, brothers and sisters, without any plan, without any proper documentation. When the Mark Boss, and is not Mark Loquan, and all of this, brothers and sisters, stem from the collapse of the gas industry in the aftermath of the visit to Houston by Keith Rowley, where there is no public record. Rowley and Stuart Young went there with a golf bag to negotiate gas prices. Both beat their chest. They negotiate gas price. When they came back to Trinidad, the gas sector collapsed. And there's no public record of that at all. So, brothers and sisters, the story continues. The story continues. The directors of NGC asked Minister Imbert to give them an indemnity. What is an indemnity? An indemnity means you want some type of legal assurance that you will not face legal action. You will not face a lawsuit, and you certainly will not be liable for a bad investment decision. But directors of this board must abide by the Companies Act, which provide that directors must act with honesty. They must act with diligence, with due care. They must conduct the business of a company like how you conduct the business of a shop, a garage, a supermarket, a hardware, and so on, with care and diligence. But the directors were aware that what they were doing was wrong, that there were no documentation to support what they were doing with a massive squander of taxpayers' money. So they say we want to be indemnified. Today, I call upon Colin Imbert. It is our information that at this time, no indemnity has been provided in writing. Colin Imbert, do not take God out of your mind and provide any illegal and unlawful and illicit and unethical indemnity to no director of NGC. That is what we call for immediately. Absolutely nothing of that sort. Why would you want an indemnity if you are acting in good faith? If you are acting with solid advice, commercial advice, with legal advice? You want an indemnity because you know in your heart, you know what you are doing is wrong. And you want to be indemnified. But today, I want to call out those directors to tell them, we know who you are. And there is no corner on the planet, there is no rock that you could go under and hide. So the NGC board, Conrad Enil, Ken Alum, Marcus Ganes, Howard Dutton, Mark Loquan, and you will hear more about this Mark. That is a Mark to us. Villiers Kwanvi, you will hear more about her. Naranjit Pariag, Dan Martineau, Sandra Fraser, Sean Balkisoon, NGC board. You cannot hide, you cannot escape accountability. The NGC LNG board, Conrad Enil, Ken Alum, Marcus Ganes, Howard Dutton, Mark Loquan, who is the president of NGC, receiving a package, we believe, of $200,000 a month. Villiers Kwanvi, Naranjit Pariag of LNG NGC. You cannot hide from accountability. Stuart Young cannot hide behind these lofty issues of it is complex, sophisticated negotiations. We cannot talk now. So when you will talk, when $500 million gone, that is when you will talk. Brothers and sisters, we demand now that the company and the authorities take all action to secure board notes, minutes, documents, correspondence on this issue. We want to know why certain directors dissented, why they did not agree with that decision, why we are concerned with that. And brothers and sisters, a critical question I ask today, where the money gone? They have paid between December to June or thereabout, 2021, $200 million to Atlantic LNG. There was no upgrade, there was no rescue program, there was no enhancement, no refurbishment to Train 1. Where the money gone? Atlantic LNG is refusing to account for that money to NGC today. Today we ask the government to come clean. Tell us the names of contractors that may have benefited from the $200 million that gone. Tell us the names of contractors. We understand that Atlantic LNG has taken that money, taxpayers' money, and paid to identifiable and selected contractors. What they paid for, we don't know. We cast no aspersions on the contractors. But I am asking the question, are these contractors linked to the People's National Movement, to the hierarchy of the PNM? Is this a way to source funds from NGC to Atlantic LNG to contractors to finance a campaign in Tobago? We ask the question. We don't know. Are these contractors financing the PNM THA campaign in the upcoming elections in Tobago? That is the fundamental question. Where the money gone? Because it did not go to upgrade. It did not go for rescue package. It did not go for turnaround. It went somewhere, and we must now follow $200 million, which for all intents and purposes the taxpayer has lost in this macabre, diabolical, disgusting scandal. Brothers and sisters, so those are the questions that are burning at this time concerning NGC. And if that wasn't bad enough, we understand that Colm Imbert has now approved a loan of $498 million US dollars, 3.4 more or less billion TT dollars for NGC after NGC just threw away $200 million. We understand that NGC is now considering under Mark Loquan, who is the reincarnation, it appears, of Calder Hart. Mark Loquan and NGC is now considering retrenching 130 workers at NGC. Brothers and sisters, so the workers must go. They will lose their jobs at NGC, while NGC just throw away, just dump $200 million of taxpayers' money. And you must understand, they agreed to give $500 million. Then halfway through, they changed their mind, and they say, we're not giving any more money. Take the 200 and go. We are concerned with that now. We don't want it back. Go with $200 million. That is management for you under Mark Loquan, brothers and sisters. That is the management for you. So they have destroyed Point Lisas. They have destroyed Point Apia with the refinery. They have destroyed Point Fortin now. In fact, they have destroyed all points. The people in Point Kumana might be worried they may be coming for them next. That is the hallmark of the PNM today, brothers and sisters. And when they continue with their incompetence, they continue to blame the partnership. They continue to blame the partnership. Their hashtag is blame the partnership. There was an episode yesterday, another matter. At Labre, Lake Asphalt, a simple matter actually, you know. Lake Asphalt says that they have been conned by unscrupulous, unknown persons, $1.7 million. Somebody hacked into their account, and instead of the money going to a supplier, the money went to some nefarious person or entity. And they have been conned, and they lost $1.7 million. The matter is before the police. I don't want to say too much. But what is amazing is when they asked the Minister of Energy for a comment, now let me put it on the table. In 6 years, there is not one identifiable achievement of Stuart Young in public life. I will give 6 months of my salary if somebody could tell me what he has achieved in 6 years as a top leading minister running the government, caddying for the Prime Minister. So in this article, they interview Stuart Young. They say, what is your comment that Labre, Lake Asphalt appears to have been robbed of 1.7 million? He said the partnership government is to blame. They say, how? He said, well, they spent plenty money when they were there. They had a contract, a company named Fastech sued Lake Asphalt for non-payment of bills, and the matter went to the court. And quite recently in June, I think Justice Gobin ruled in favor of the company, and Lake Asphalt must now pay them $2 or $3 million as the case may be. So he said, well, the partnership to blame for that. He lost the matter in court because of a failure to pay contractors for work done, services provided, goods provided, and then blame the partnership for that. This is the state of the scandal that we face in Trinidad and Tobago. The other scandal emerging yesterday was this matter of the Point Fortin Highway Commission of Inquiry. Let me say from the outset, brothers and sisters, this is a bacchanal to come. This will squander another $50 million in legal fees, administrative fees, technical and professional fees. There is nothing to investigate. Why don't you complete the blasted highway to Point Fortin so people will not be flooding away in the creek while we talk, so that the people can go down and conduct business in Point Fortin? The other day I had to go to Point Fortin. I followed a truck from San Fernando. It took about 2 hours because the highway is not complete. I don't think they have completed 10 feet of highway in 6 years. They want to spend $50 million on a witch hunt, and they will not get any witch. They will not find any witch. Brothers and sisters, what is the scandal there is they have appointed a former judge, a former member of the Integrity Commission, I believe, retired Justice Sebastian Vento. Now, Mr. Vento, I am appealing to you as someone much younger than you are. Please, you have disqualified yourself. You cannot sit as chairman of that Commission of Inquiry. Recall that when the Integrity Commission closed the investigation into Emailgate and said there was nothing else to be found, there was no evidence of wrongdoing by office holders and so on, and it was a fake, it was a fabrication. This man, Mr. Vento, went in the public, broke ranks with the Integrity Commission, and said, no, he still has doubts. He still has doubts. I want to ask Mr. Vento today, do you still have doubts? Do you have doubts that former Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar, her ministers, and indeed Acting Commissioner Gary Griffith were in some way conspiring to murder a journalist, as Dr. Rowley suggested in Emailgate? If you have doubts about that, you are disqualified from sitting on the Commission of Inquiry. So make your position clear on Emailgate and then go to sit on a Commission of Inquiry to investigate the work of the People's Partnership Government. You are disqualified, sir. Your foot is in your mouth. Open your mouth so you may at least change foot. But you cannot do this. That is scandalous. You cannot accept that appointment where they will squander millions of dollars again. After 11 years, what are you going to investigate? You're going to measure land that slip away and slide away already? So that, brothers and sisters, is just an attempt to undermine the leadership of the UNC and our People's Partnership Administration. That is to attempt to undermine, to criminalize, to demonize. And when I speak on that, the final issue I want to raise is another scandal that came to yesterday. Now this government is in a collision course with another high office holder. Brothers and sisters, yesterday we saw in the daily newspaper a headline, ex-judge probes license racket. Now I want to say that the Prime Minister has no authority, even though he's chairman of the National Security Council. He cannot unilaterally and outside of the law appoint two private persons, two private citizens, to investigate a constitutionally protected police service. Last year, at the end of December, Keith Rowley appointed a former Chief of Defense Staff, I believe Mr. Hayden Prashad. And correct me if I'm wrong, I am willing to apologize if I'm wrong. Hayden Prashad, were you leading a team appointed by the Prime Minister to investigate gun license business in the police service? You were a private citizen, a retired police officer by the name, I believe, of Barrington from Special Branch, was appointed by the Prime Minister to investigate police officers. That is a mongoose gang, reminiscent of Gary in Grenada, the Tonton Macoutes in Haiti, under Duvalier. Brothers and sisters, they went to investigate the police. That investigation is illegal, is unlawful. If you want to investigate police officer, the law establishes the Police Complaints Authority. Under the police service, you also have something called the Professional Standards Bureau that investigates the conduct of police officers. But the Constitution changed by 2007 or thereabout. The Prime Minister cannot investigate the police service that way. You cannot hire private persons to investigate the police service, brothers and sisters. And Hayden Prashad, if it is you, I recall when they came into power in February 2017, again, I apologize to the gentleman if I'm wrong. This Hayden Prashad was one of the beneficiaries of many who received a posh VIP apartment at Victoria Keys in the constituency of Diego Martin West. I show you the document now. Is this the same Hayden Prashad who received a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom VIP apartment at Victoria Keys to the tune of $1.85 million, which was paid, I believe, through a mortgage loan? Is this the same person who benefited from the HDC? Now, by the Prime Minister, in his constituency, the Prime Minister cut ribbon and so on for that. Is that the same person you put to investigate Gary Griffith and the police? Who has no legal authority to question police officers, to get to anything. Today we hear that they made damning statements against police officers, businessmen, and another wrong is taking place. They have referred that illegal report, which is null and void, to the Police Service Commission. The Police Service Commission has no authority to investigate the conduct of officers below the rank of Deputy Commissioner. The law changed. The Police Service Commission is responsible, according to the law. They can inquire into disciplinary matters and so on of a Commissioner of Police and a Deputy Commissioner of Police, not a constable, sergeant, inspector, etc. So how can the Police Service Commission establish an inquiry led by a former judge, and I cast no aspersions on Justice Stanley John, none at all? How can the Police Service Commission illegally appoint a committee to investigate a constable, sergeant, and inspector? They have no basis, no foundation in law. The police officers can only be investigated by a police complaint authority, by their own Professional Standards Bureau. So that, brothers and sisters, is another legal bomb waiting to explode. You cannot, but they want to get rid of somebody. So in getting rid of somebody, they want to demonize, criminalize, undermine their character and integrity, so that when the time comes, because it is not coincidental that the Police Service Commission may have recommendations for commissioner, they may be on the way to the President's house and then pull the handbrakes and stop, because we saw in the papers yesterday investigation into gun license. That is not a coincidence that the acting commissioner went on leave today. It came out one day before. No coincidence. They are treading on dangerous ground, brothers and sisters. And you know what is amazing? This same government came to Parliament to change the law to give the Police Complaints Authority greater jurisdiction than they had before. Now they have jurisdiction over SRP too. So they expand the role of the Police Complaint Authority and now not using the very body to investigate police officers. But they put the Police Service Commission, which is appointed as a political appointment. Yes, it is brought to the parliament by the president, but it is a political appointment. So a politically appointed police service commission will now investigate an independent, constitutionally protected body called the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. That is a scandal. That cannot happen in any democratic society. That is undermining the rule of law. The Prime Minister has usurped his power. And it is not the first time he has done that. Recall, he brought police officers from Barbados to investigate the DSS Susu business. That was also null and void outside of this jurisdiction. Then today, he appointed Prashad and Barrington, private citizens, to investigate Trinidad and Tobago Police Service and the conduct of their business in the firearm department and so on. That is also unlawful. So brothers and sisters, it is an illegal investigation. The Prime Minister has overstepped his authority. It is time, brothers and sisters, we expose them for what they are. It is not a secret. It is not a secret, the plan that they have to bring in a commissioner of police of their own liking. And this is part of that diabolical plot, brothers and sisters. So brothers and sisters, in closing, I want to indicate that the time has come to mothball the PNM. The time has come to deal with them forcefully and frontally. Today I want to indicate that the PNM has taken this country 30 years back, brothers and sisters. They have collapsed the economy. They have mismanaged the COVID-19 crisis. They have destroyed everything they had to destroy. While they couldn't find money to open school, 6 years they couldn't open school. They opened school today. They opened a school in Chatham on Monday and announced that all schools close on Tuesday. That is their vision. That is their planning, brothers and sisters. They couldn't fix the boat in San Fernando, a water taxi vessel, for 6 years, but they wasted $20 million for a Prime Minister home in Tobago. Have you noticed the Prime Minister is now domiciled in Tobago? When Mrs. Prasad Bisesa went to her private residence in San Fernando, they made a fuss about that, the Prime Minister running the country from San Fernando. Today, the Prime Minister is living in Tobago with the rest of the Waltons family living in Port of Spain Diplomatic Center. That is what is happening today. They wasted $18 million on a lobbyist, $3 million shamefully on paintings. That is what they did. $200 million to develop Skinner Park, 5 minutes away from the Manny Ramjohn and Brian Lara Stadium, and $500 million for one terminal in Tobago for passengers they don't know where they will come from. That is the management we have. So brothers and sisters, in closing, I thank you for your attention. Look forward to your solidarity, your support. All is not lost at all. As bad as things may appear to be, the United National Congress is there, unified, strong, in solidarity to ensure that we are an alternative government, and we have the skill, we have the human capital. The UNC has the professional capacity and political skill to manage the affairs of this country. Thank you, and may God bless you all.
Over the past 6 years, we have seen attempts by the government, PNM government, to erode our democracy and infringe on the rights of citizens. This government is moving to change the law to really, I think, to put in place their hand-picked commissioner of police.
You will never stop fighting for me when I can't fight for myself. Every word is a promise you keep, 'cause you love me like nobody.
Right now, from the leadership of the United National Congress, the first woman Prime Minister, the first woman Attorney General, the first woman to lead a parliamentary political party, the first woman opposition leader. Let's welcome Kamla Prasad Bisesa, Senior Counsel.
You will never stop fighting for me, fighting for me.
Good evening, UNC friends and family. Thank you for tuning in again to another virtual. Let me thank all those speakers who came before me, all powerful UNC speakers, UNC and proud. Tonight I want to raise some very serious matters which have arisen in the public domain in recent times. And this is happening at a time when the PNM has our country in the worst position we have ever been. We have a crashed economy with people worrying about their future. We have a raging pandemic. We have an education system in chaos for young children. And all at the same time, we have the unilateral removal of rights and freedoms in our country, curtailment of those rights by Keith Rowley and his government. So whilst you are experiencing hell in this country, Rowley, his friends, his financiers, and their families are living lives of luxury, wasting hundreds of millions of dollars of your money, looking to spy on you, breaking their promises to the women of our country, and threatening our children. We are being currently ruled by what could be called a band of thieves, led by a wannabe tyrant. The UNC is the only institution that stands in the way of the tyrants. I turn now to speak about the fiasco at NGC in relation to Atlantic Train 1. This now we can dub it Malcolm Jones 2.0. There is a very interesting article, an expose by Anthony Wilson in the Sunday Express of 5th September 2021, LNG meltdown. Now this is a scandal of the highest order, and when you read the article you'll see why, but we have more to share with you at this time. This is to me the most serious issue facing us now. In the newest chapter in the PNM's ongoing pillaging, destruction, and decimation of our nation's major industrial oil and gas sector. Government has failed to deliver a single year of growth in our energy sector. Instead, they have been destroying it year after year in new ways every time. Recently, we found out that the board of NGC had sought an indemnity for their decision to spend $440 million Trinidad and Tobago dollars on the failed turnaround of Atlantic Train 1. So they have destroyed another jewel in our energy crown, having already destroyed Petrotrin. They're rubbing the country blind while they're doing so. Let us understand what an indemnity means. It means that they're seeking not to be liable personally should they be sued, and if they're sued, they will not have to personally pay for the monies that may have been wasted. And that is what it means. So they're asking the government, look, indemnify us for whatever wrong decisions we have made, whether negligently or deliberately, we don't have to pay. And therefore, they are not liable. That is what the indemnity means. Let's understand that. So what has happened now with these decisions? They relate to $440 million Trinidad and Tobago dollars. It relates to where did that money go? The question arises, in whose pockets did that money end up? Now, they can't pay your salary grants and your reliefs and so on. They can't give you VAT refunds, but they can throw away $440 million of taxpayers' money and then say, what? Hey, give me an indemnity. I'm not personally liable, even though I may have made wrong decisions, bad decisions. Why is the board asking for an indemnity? There can only be one reason. Why would you come up front to ask for an indemnity? If you think you were acting appropriately, then there was no need to seek an indemnity. Why are you asking for it? There can be only one reason. They probably already know that they're guilty of wrongdoing, of making bad decisions, and so they're looking up front for protection. But doesn't the company law of our land already talks about directors having a fiduciary duty to the taxpayers and to the company? Why do you seek an upfront indemnity from the government? And the PNM government is really appearing, and bold-facedly so, they're going to give them the indemnity, because here it is, none other than the Prime Minister himself, reported in this Saturday Express, September 4th, 2021, the Prime Minister supports indemnity for NGC directors. The Prime Minister is supporting the indemnity. Why? Is it that then that the Prime Minister and his ministers, his cabinet, had told them, go ahead and do this? And therefore, that's why they themselves have been so bold. They says, I want an indemnity. I've done nothing wrong. Maybe there's some higher up. And this story, PM supports it, tends to support any view that they have been given instructions from the powers that be. Are we saying to the country, we will protect our friends from whatever thieving or wrongdoing or negligence they may have done? You remember this as a Prime Minister spoke about the code of the Cosa Nostra. Is this Cosa Nostra protecting your own? And you know, this reminds me of the alleged fake oil scandal. Keith Rowley's best friend, AV Drilling, standing to get millions more of our dollars. I think there should be a commission inquiry into that. The failure of the board of the successor company to Petrotrin to go to the High Court to apply to set aside the arbitration award, which if is allowed to stand, will amount to millions of dollars to the Prime Minister's best friend. And here it is, another board, a Rowley board, placing millions of your dollars at risk by failing to heed the advice of their lawyers to apply to the High Court to set aside the arbitration award. Have they also asked for an indemnity, by the way? Because by failing to make a decision in the interests of the taxpayer, is it that they have also quietly and secretly asked for an indemnity for their wrong decision or their negligence in failing to go to the High Court to apply to set aside this judgment? Tonight, I tell you, this NGC indemnity for Train 1, GTL Malcolm Jones 2.0. Just as Malcolm Jones was allowed to escape scot-free after billions of dollars of waste, mismanagement, corruption, the NGC board, including its president, are now attempting to be protected from a vulgar wasting of $440 million. And let's remember, the code operated there. Cosa Nostra operated there, because even though we had filed that matter in court, the PNM government removed the matter from court, thereby protecting Malcolm Jones, again, the friends, the family, and finances of the PNM. Just as Malcolm Jones escaped, is it also then that this board for the NGC seeks to escape liability for their wrongful mismanagement of the Atlantic issue? In 2019, they were aware that BPTT, the major gas supplier of Train 1, would be unable to supply gas to the plant. Instead of finding a new supply of gas, government spent 2 years downplaying this was not important, giving $440 million of your taxpayers' money, acted as though it was their money. It didn't matter. At the start of this year, this government could not identify a single source of gas to keep the plant operating, in addition to which the majority stakeholders, BPTT and Shell, told the government in writing they had no gas and will not be participating in the so-called turnaround. A letter written early in this year, 2021, by concerned employees to the Prime Minister indicated that something was very wrong and that the government and the people were being set up. Prime Minister, why did you not act on that? Why did you not look at what they were alleging in terms of the behavior by the board of NGC, the president of NGC, and the interlocking directorates of NGC and its subsidiary, where they each patted each other on the back and said, yes, we agree that we should get an indemnity. Again, a serious conflict of interest and no due diligence, not just by the board, not just by the chairman, the president of NGC, but no due diligence by Mr. Rowley. He was directly written on this matter early this year before this whole fiasco unfolded. So it is shameful, I think, and disingenuous that despite failing to identify a single source of gas which would keep Train 1 going, the board of NGC opted to invest $440 million Trinidad and Tobago dollars in a turnaround of Train 1. I pose the question to the Prime Minister, the Minister of Energy, to the Chairman and President of NGC. Why did you waste taxpayers' money knowing there was not a gas supply to keep the train going? What analysis on future supply of gas did the board base these $440 million investments on? Who are the recipients of these funds? None of those projects listed by the Minister of Energy can supply immediate gas. So did the board base this investment on a flawed gas supply? What economic model did you base this investment on? And what has been the benefit of the investment to the people of our nation? It is clear that the board is seeking indemnity because they knew that this investment was a callous waste of taxpayers' money, but they went ahead and did it anyway. Normally, once we had the facts, we would be able to sue them for negligence, and therefore they're seeking an upfront protection by way of the indemnity. But I think we have to ask further. I ask the government, is it a cabinet minister, or the prime minister who instructed the board to make this baseless, wasteful decision because they were playing politics to avoid the embarrassment of yet another plant closing down? The mere fact that the Minister of Finance has granted some form of indemnity is proof that not only was there wrongdoing with the board and with the president and so on, but raises the questions about cabinet involvement, ministers' involvement. It is obscene that the board of NGC are more concerned with protecting themselves than protecting taxpayers. Tonight I call for the resignation of the entire board and the executive management of the NGC, and I call for the resignation of the Minister of Energy, the Minister of Everything, who has failed in every ministry that has ever been put into. They should resign, and they must go now. And whilst we speak of Mr. Young and the matters falling under his portfolio, there's another mystery, and it's a mystery to do with FCB and a company called Barita. As you know, this government is very close to a Jamaican company called NCB Global Finance. And guess what? It is headed by one Mr. Angus Young, the brother of the Super Minister, Stuart Young. They were a very small company when they started off, just a few years ago, but they were so lucky, and they have done quite well under the Rowley and Stuart Young regime. I note that recently they opened a bank. They've come so far. Well, it seems there's another Jamaican company that the government has taken a liking to, Barita Investments. Yes, Barita Investments. Recently, government-owned First Citizens Bank made a substantial investment in Barita. But here's the mystery. We don't know who are the majority shareholders of Barita or their associated companies. We don't know why the state-owned FCB decided to invest $25 million in Barita's shares. We also don't know how much returns FCB made from its investments in Barita. Questions then are these. Is any government minister, any member of the government, or any chairman of any state company investors in Barita? Did Faris and Stuart Young or any other minister have to recuse themselves for any decisions here as well? Is the PNM government currently seriously considering the sale of FCB? But look, don't worry. We will solve this mystery. There's a local saying, night does run, but day will catch up. The band of thieves may keep stealing at every chance they get, but the day will catch up and the mystery will be solved. So here is the article here, FCB, Barita parent, US $25 million. I ask again, why? Why did FCB invest, and how much return have they gotten on this major investment? Let's talk about a cabinet in hiding. What was the big outcome of this cabinet retreat? And it was that the Prime Minister is telling the country, people not taking the vaccines, the people of Tobago not taking the vaccine. That's a big story out of cabinet retreat, a cabinet in hiding. And the wording and the name is so appropriate, retreat, because they have given up on every major challenge our nation faces. The PNM government is a government in retreat. Imagine at a time when we're all being buffed for congregating and traveling, at a time when taxi drivers can't earn money because they're not allowed to fill their cars with passengers, at a time when everyone in the world has been using Zoom and other online forums to meet. At this time, what did the Prime Minister do? Rowley picked up his entire cabinet, not to mention all the supporting staff they would have also taken, put them on a plane, went to Tobago, all together in a room to retreat and to line. You see why Rowley got COVID? Like all dictators, he refuses to follow the very same rules he forces you to follow. One rule for us, another rule for them. This is how every wannabe dictator operates. Rowley and his crew are following the script, the playlist. And on Friday, after they stole a taxpayer-funded holiday, Rowley revealed, as I said, the brilliant idea that he and the PNM came up with in Tobago. What was it? we need to vaccinate more people. Wonderful Prime Minister, you needed a whole 3-day retreat in Tobago to think about that. But you know, in between buffing up the people in Tobago on Friday, Rowley also said something that was really amazing. He said that he was not going to reopen beaches in Tobago because the last time he did that, it led to a spike in cases we have today. And when was the last time Rowley was talking about that? Easter. Remember that Easter weekend? When he and Rohan Sinanan both boasted about the thousands of people who traveled between the two islands for that weekend. I saw a very interesting article by Paolo Kernahan where he said first it was the candlelight vigils that caused the spiking in the cases, and now is if you go to the beaches that causes spiking. Again, dumb science on the part of the Prime Minister and his cabinet. So basically, Rowley is saying that it is because of himself we had to lock down the country for 3 months. And the reason there was a spike in cases in Tobago today is because of Rowley's own reckless actions. He said it. Even Rowley is now warning about the actions of Rowley. Can you imagine that? Even Rowley is now warning about the actions of Rowley. I call on Rowley and his cabinet, the wannabe dictator and his band, to stop chilling and wasting taxpayers' money in Tobago and come up and devise an inclusive, transparent and comprehensive vaccination program to get people vaccinated quickly. We don't need to take a taxpayer-funded holiday in Tobago to come up with the idea that we need to get people vaccinated quickly. And I've been saying that since February. You know, something very interesting happened. Senator Jayanti Lakshmi together with Councillor Rishi Balram Singh, the senator said she was asked by the Minister of Health to assist in the vaccination drive. And that was to be on Friday at the Gulfview Community Center. And then they called and they cancelled it. What were their reasons? They alone know. But what happened instead is that Faris Alwari came to Gulfview and had another super spreader of hundreds of people gathered in an enclosed space in Gulfview for vaccinations, just to get a PR, just to get himself and his face and his voice out there as a PR gimmick. They scuttled what had already been agreed to allow Faris to come down to San Fernando and, as I say, engage in another super spreader. Reminds you of what? Easter and Rowley in Tobago, super spreader. Reminds you of that. And then they want to blame candlelight vigils, they want to blame the beaches, they want to blame the churches, they want to blame the individual, they want to blame everyone except themselves. Well, it's not going to work, Prime Minister, it's not going to work. We don't need, as I say, this holiday that you went on in Tobago taxpayer funded. And you must now fully admit the misjudgment you made in Easter when you wanted to papi show yourself because the PNM had lost the THA elections and reopened against the advice of the CMOH, who is on record saying he had concerns. So now, Keith Rowley, you must now fully admit the misjudgment you made at Easter time when you wanted to papi show yourself because the PNM had lost the THA elections and you reopened against the advice of the CMO, who is on record saying he had concerns about that. It is because of you, Keith Rowley, that the people of TNT are suffering today. And let us remember, you're back in Tobago on this taxpayer-funded retreat, but you have another THA elections in the air. So when it suits you, you take the crew, you go up to Tobago, and then you want to blame everyone, the people of Tobago, the people of Trinidad, and you do not see your own actions as contributing to the situation we are in today. So it is clear that you just can't do anything right. What happened to the pepper spray legislation? Like all wannabe dictators, Rowley has absolutely no care for the people he leads. To prove it, don't only look at the COVID disaster, but look at what is happening to our daughters and our sisters, our mothers in this country. Since 2017, we have been calling for pepper spray legislation to allow our women to protect themselves. Over and over again, we have proposed this in Parliament, outside Parliament. Look how many innocents had to be taken away before this wicked, heartless government decided to amend one small piece of law to make it legal. They came with excuse after excuse. and only after tremendous pressure did they start to act. That was more than a year ago. They came to Parliament, they brought an amendment a whole year ago, and you know, today we are nowhere closer than we were because the process is still incomplete. Women still cannot legally access pepper spray to protect themselves. You remember where this all came about? When they then came and promised only after tremendous pressure following the death of Ashanti and the death of Andrea Barrett. So you brought it. Okay. Mama Guy again. Up to today, in addition to bringing a flawed bill to Parliament, you still cannot see your job through to the end. The end here is getting pepper spray in the hands of those women who need it most. If those who need it the most cannot get access to the pepper spray, then what was the point? What was the whole pappy show about? What is the issue with the Attorney General? Are you waiting for one of your relatives to set up a pepper spray company before you see work to the end, before you implement the legislation? What is the keepback? Up to today, 1 year later, we still do not have implementation of the pepper spray legislation. I always say PNM means promises never materialize. This time, to the women of our country, it is only lies after lies after lies and promises, promises, promises. PNM, promises never materialize. When I started speaking to you earlier, I talked about the fact that this government, while you are experiencing hell, that the Keith Rowley government, their friends, their finances and families are living lives of luxury, wasting money, looking to spy on you. Well, I come to the issue of the spying because we have a very strange thing happen. Recently, Her Excellency the President was out of the country, and the acting president, none other than Her Excellency Christine Kangaloo, as acting president of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, issued legal notice number 220 in Legal Supplement Part B, Volume 60, number 125, 20th August 2021. Legal notice number 220. Out of nowhere, like a thief in the night, this legal notice, under the hand of the acting president, so they waited until the president was out of the country, acting president Christine Kangaloo issued a proclamation. And what did it do? The proclamation was to put into effect Section 42A and B of what is known as the Data Protection Act. Section 42A and B. Now this is an entire statute, the purpose of which, when it was envisioned and when it was passed in the Parliament, was to protect your personal data, your privacy issues. What this legal notice has now done is that it gives power to public bodies, such as ministries, cabinet, parliament, and other public bodies, to share your personal information with each other. That personal information can be information such as age, religion, marital status, employment record, medical records, financial transactions, address, telephone contacts, private and confidential letters. So what it does is saying that any such information that is in the hands of a public body, that they can share it with any other public body, meaning government bodies. That's what this basically is saying. And why is it now, in the middle of an SOE, in the middle of a pandemic, where our rights are being truncated, taken away, why does the government come like a thief in the night to proclaim this single section of the Data Protection Act? The whole structure of the Data Protection Act, as I say, was to protect your personal information. Yes, it could be disclosed, but only with your consent. Those sections have not been proclaimed. It could be disclosed, yes, within a framework where you have an information commissioner to safeguard your rights. It could be disclosed where there are regulations, but none of these sections have been proclaimed. You cherry-pick this one section, and I think it's a very dangerous action, another dictatorial move on the part of the government. So you have none of the protections out of the Data Protection Act, and instead you have a free-for-all. So should the Prime Minister decide, I want your BIR information, wait, I want your medical records. I want to know if you took the vaccine or didn't take the vaccine. Give me the medical records of you and you and you. You haven't taken a vaccine, you know what? You can't come to work. Stay home. Stay home. Why did you come now to choose and cherry pick this one section? Yes, this act was passed under my watch. And when it was passed, as I said, it passed with an entire framework of protections and safeguards for your rights and your privacy. What we did, we proclaimed parts of it, very few parts of it. What? It was to give the office of the Information Commissioner to get it into operation, so that you would have that person, that office, safeguarding your rights, which was the whole purpose of the Data Protection Act. So it is very important that the office is functioning. You know, there's no functioning office of the Information Commissioner. None. No regulations, none of the safeguards have been proclaimed. So you will say it was passed on our watch. But let me remind you, Attorney General, you were not then AG, but loquacious as ever, you put forward many, many amendments. It was not passed with a special majority because the framework provided the safeguards that would give it legitimacy, would give it reasonable justification, and all the Surat matters that you speak about, that it would be constitutional. But when you leave out all the safeguards and you proclaim only this 42A and B, then you have removed every single safeguard, and this, in my respectful view, is going to be a trampling and a violation of all the rights of our citizens to privacy and to protection of their personal data. There should be a code of conduct as well. Where is the code of conduct? That should have been approved by the Information Commissioner. But you have no Information Commissioner, so there's no code of conduct, as I said, no regulations to be made by the Minister. None of the safeguards are contained within the framework of that law. And this is a very dangerous move on the part of government. Let me repeat my call and make it very clear. I call on government. I call on the Attorney General to tell us why, in the height of the pandemic, when so many rights are already being trampled, why did you see it fit to cherry pick this one section out of the Data Protection Act to have it proclaimed? Why? There can be no good intention in any of this. This is to get into the personal data of the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. And I totally condemn this, and government should rethink this, or else they should repeal it. But they may have another reason, and that reason will come forward. But at the moment, this is a dangerous, dangerous, dangerous piece of action on the part of government. Before I close, I want to quickly refer to the media's important role in preventing our country from being ruled by dictators and protecting our treasury from being raided. The media, like the opposition, are supposed to hold the government to account. This morning, however, I was shocked to see that one of our leading media houses, their flagship morning show, is now being hosted by a failed PNM general election candidate, a former PNM senator. I want to ask this: how is this person expected to hold the government to account? How is he going to ask the hard questions? How is he going to provide cover for the band of thieves led by a wannabe dictator? In a country with a vast storehouse of talent, it is amazing that this leading media house can only find PNM candidates and outright lobbyists to host their programs. This is a danger to democracy and to the treasury and to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. I some people may not be happy to speak of this, but this is a very important issue. The media is the facilitator of democracy, and therefore why are you using failed PNM candidates, failed PNM senators to host your morning program? That program is a great program where we can put the government to task and the opposition. You can ask us the questions, but when you already have a partisan host, then nothing good can come out of it. And whilst I speak that, I am reminded that the government is now 6 going on 7 years later, has announced that they will launch a commission of inquiry into the Point Fortin Highway. You have found nothing for 6 going on 7 years. So what is this about? This is going to be a kangaroo court. This is going to be a witch hunt, because you want to escape from Marita, you want to escape from NGC's fiasco, you want to escape from the Lake Ashford fiasco, so many, Petrotrin fiasco, the AV drilling, all of these. We should have a commission of inquiry on heavy drilling. We should have a commission of inquiry on the failure of the Petroleum Board. But you want to do this Point Fortin highway, which I am proud that we built that highway. The PNM promised it for over 50 years. It took a UNC government in 5 years. We did part of it, and then you came and you just stopped it. So you want a commission of inquiry. It says a kangaroo court. It is a partisan panel made up of PNM stooges and cronies. Yes, and I call out the judge, because this is the very judge, and the email gate came up with all kinds of extrajudicial thinking to say that the fake emails were real, when everybody else, from Google to the police to the whole Integrity Commission, except that judge. So we cannot accept. You want a commission of inquiry? Have it. That's up to you. But the panel is made up of partisan persons. They are a band of cronies of the PNM, a band of stooges of the PNM. And we will have none of it. We'll talk more on that another day, but I'm reminded of what is happening in CNC3 here, by the PNM setting up this commission of inquiry and putting their cronies and their stooges as persons of to hold up and to adjudicate upon the actions and delivery of the Point Fortin highway. Thank you again for joining us for this virtual, and we in UNC, we say those who hold power must be held to account. While Rowley and the PNM give away hundreds of millions of dollars of your money, they want to spy on you, they want to break their promises to the women and children of our country, they want to threaten our children. We in the UNC will call them out and hold the government to account. It may be easy to lose hope in everything, but like I always say, no matter how dark tonight will be, the sun will always rise in the morning, bringing with it light and hope of a new day. In the UNC, we continue to be the light of hope, and that is so much needed today. We have talked about the numerous issues plaguing us, and you have seen some of our plans to revitalize and transform our economy, to create jobs and to get Trinidad and Tobago working again. We are here to guard against this dictatorial government, and rest assured that I will continue to stand between this wicked administration and you, the people of our land. Let us continue working together as we strive to build a new nation for ourselves and our children. Thank you, and may God continue to bless you all. Thank you very much.
Is willing to fight when the going gets tough and my strength's not enough. I see you showing up like never before. This battle for my heart, you took on from the start. You are the peace when my mind's at war. And
Douglas Politics, Tuesday night, 7:30 p.m. Under pressure, no income during the shutdown, lockdown and brockdown, lost your job, businesses shut down, cannot pay the landlord, bank foreclosing on your property, cannot afford to send your children to school, cannot buy the books, you have no laptop, looking for a discount. Have no fear, Keith Rowley and his government are here. They've put you into a position of pure and total sufferation. But fear not, they are not done with you yet. You have land, your mother give you land, your granny leave you land, your family give you land. They coming to tax you, and more tax you. Him but wants to tax you. Advertisement for tax. Right, November 30th, make sure they coming to tax you. Then property tax. Oh, more VAT on food, tax. Well, it cost you to vote PNM. Vote PNM because they care. Vote PNM because they care about your pocket. They want to empty it and keep it empty. Douglas Politics, 7:30 p.m. Tuesday night. The only building rising in the sky, Balize House. 70 million, 80 million? 100 million? Who's the contractor? Did they tender it? Where the money coming from? How come so many different contractors? Did they use Tranquility School? Balize House, reaching for the sky while you reach into your empty pocket. Vote PNM. Douglas Politics. 7:30 p.m. Tuesday night. My goodness. Enough is enough.